It's the Jaden Show, and here's your host, Jaden Cornelius.
It's time for the Jaden Show with very special guest, Jime Soprano. She's going to be on my show. Hello, it's Sunday and welcome to a super classical version of the Jaden Show. I have a wonderful show in store for you today. I'm going all the way down the road to Puerto Morelos in Mexico to meet a very special friend and a super wonderfully talented lady. Her name is Jime Soprano and I'm going to be chatting to her in a minute. But before we do, how are you doing, kids? What's going in your world? Talk to me. I'm nosy and I want to know how things are for you. Leave me comments, leave me questions. It'll be really, really wonderful to speak to you. Before I go and chat to the wonderful Jime Soprano, let's see a little bit of her in action. Okay, enough. I want to go and speak to Jime Soprano. So let's go and meet this week's special guest, Ms. Jime Soprano. Jime Soprano, otherwise known as Layla Gaga. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you, Jaden.
You look
Thank you, my alter ego,
Layla
Layla
Gaga.
Gaga.
That's hilarious. Do you know what? It's really bizarre because I live in a place very similar. I live in the jungle, so the opposite side. But where you look, I'm looking at you thinking, oh my God, she looks in a place so lovely and tropical. And I live in the same kind of place, but I'm looking at that thinking, oh look, it looks so nice and peaceful there.
As if you were in the middle of London.
Yeah, I've got my Union Jack behind me. So I have been very lucky to not only have known you for quite a while now, but also have sung with you on several occasions. But for those people in my life that might not know who is the diva, the glamorous woman that is Jime Soprano, when did you... Well, you're from Argentina to start with,
Yeah, Buenos Aires.
When did you start singing? Did you start singing when you were younger? Was it a passion as you got older? Albeit you're only in your 20s now, but...
Of course, in this last 20 years, I've done so much. It feels like 40. It just feels like
the same.
Yeah. So, yeah, I've sung since I was a little girl, for sure. But I like my beginnings more singing in group was with a choir that I did that all primary and secondary school, and we also had like drama lessons, and we put up shows in my school. My school music was like a real important thing that they encouraged the students to do, so that was super good because I got to actually do stuff that it was like I was just 13 and we were doing like Miss Saigon and Me and My Girl and like those type of shows that I think I wouldn't have know they existed if it wasn't for that, because back in the day internet was not there. YouTube was not there, and in Argentina we're pretty far away from many of this world. So although the culture and the night in Argentina is super important and super good, like we have a big theater and cultural scene, but anyway, when I was small, like all those shows were not as popular as they maybe are now, so I could actually sing a lot of those when I was like a teenager and a little kid.
Did you think, was the whole of Buenos Aires and Argentina, are they very passionate about their music within their school, or were you just really lucky enough to be in a school that was like extra passionate about music?
I think that I was lucky to be in a school that promoted like music, drama, theater and choir, and I think it was a little bit more in my school than in others. Right. So I think that was a good thing.
So that kind of that started to feed your passion.
Yeah, it's weird because there's a lot of music going on in Buenos Aires and in Argentina in general. It's not an important thing in our country, but somehow I don't know why that doesn't get so much through your school. Normally it gets more through your family. Mm-hmm. If they enjoy music or whatever, then they pass it on to you. But in school, like music is sort of like a thing that is just almost like having your break.
Okay, or like a history lesson or something.
Yeah, they don't take it seriously as an art that it is. But definitely Argentina is a very musical country, and we have lots of things going on, not only in Buenos Aires, in all the country, yeah.
Well, I've spent quite a bit of time in Buenos Aires, and in the park, is it Recoleta?
See?
Just sitting there kind of having coffee and ice cream and watching the capoeira and the tango, and I was just like, oh my God, this is heaven, actually.
No, it's music is super important there. Like in Buenos Aires, you feel more like the tango, and Recoleta is like a very touristic place. So definitely they do more that. And in the rest of the country, there's plenty of folk music. There's something called peñas, and in the peñas is like a jam session, let's say, like a local jam.
Okay.
more on the folk music side, right? And you just go there and you sing, and people sing all together, or they're like just soloists or bands or whatever. They know there's plenty of music going on in general. Yeah.
So, how did it happen that all of a sudden you started singing perfectly perfect like Julie Andrews?
Oh, I was touched by the by the magical wand. Well, actually, Julie Andrews was one of the first singers I heard. Like Mary Poppins was one of my favorite movies whatsoever. So she was an influence. No, I always sang. In fact, like I spent lots of hours practicing singing by myself when I was a little kid. Like it was the one thing I did all the time. Like when I went back to my home, I just arrived, I took like a little tea, some biscuits, and then I started singing, and maybe it was hours and hours and hours of singing by myself. So I think that I really practiced by my own a lot, on my own a lot. And then I actually started studying music and knowing more about technique and everything after I finished school, because I started, there's a career in Buenos Aires that's called fonoaudiología. It involves many different aspects, but one of the aspects that involves is for you to be a vocal therapist. That means that you treat people that lose their voices, right? Because they are teachers, they're actors, or they use their voice as an instrument for their jobs. So I started learning how to do that, and at the same time I started learning how to sing, like actual vocal technique that I never done. Like I started that when I was 20. Like I was pretty an adult then. But it was weird, when you're just sort of self-taught. When I started learning how to do it, in a way it was worse for me. Like I had this amazing vocal range that suddenly became like that. I was
Really?
like, okay, what is happening? Yeah, it's just that all these things that you do intuitively, then you put your brain to them, right? And they become weird. And it was like that for a while.
No, I think I'm still there, actually, if I'm being honest.
No, then you actually become conscious, but not mental. Like it's two different things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, with time, I think I finally got to a place where I can use my intuition and also use my technique at the same time. But it takes a few years of performing.
Because obviously now you're kind of diversifying. You're also co-running vegan pizza place, which is like the best pizza in the planet. I mean, it's amazing. In the planet. Even my English is going now. But was it always your plan to be a vocalist as you grew up, as you kind of started to, I don't want to say get older because you're not old, but you know what I mean? Like as your life started to evolve, was always that importance on your music, or did it take a back seat and other things came along? Because obviously you have a husband who's super lovely and very musical, great voice. The boy's got some moves as well, I've seen that. And you formed a band called ARCHI with him. Were you together when you formed the band, or did you meet through the band?
No, he had his own songs that he was composing and producing, and I had my own that I was composing and producing. And when we met a few months later, we discovered that they actually had many things in common. Although when they started being created, that was weird, right? We didn't know each other. Oh. Yeah, we didn't know each other. And then like a couple of months later, when we started like sort of working, like, oh, can I show you something? Well, I have this. And it's like, it sounds alike. Like they could become an album, right? So ARCHI didn't exist. It was just me doing my things and he doing his own. We were sort of in like the same moment in music when I was with a jazz band, but also I wanted to explore new territories I had never composed before. So I was sort of starting in that area. And he's a composer since forever. He loves writing music more than anything else. So it wasn't new, but he was trying like new tools and new things. And like we were in the same like moment when we were not actually performing, but we were creating, right? So we just shared, and it was like, okay, this sounds pretty like they can become an album. And we actually recorded the album without even having a name. We just did an album. And then we really wanted the idea of having an album that we could actually be proud of, like the good sound, that the songs can be expressed like perfectly. No, until then we didn't. Any of us had like the chance to actually have a good album, like as it has to be done.
This was your opportunity to create something.
We wanted to do an album, so it's like, okay, we don't have a band, it's great, doesn't matter, let's just do the album, and then we attract the people that like our music, right? So that is what we did. We just worked with musicians that were not going to be our band at that moment, but we wanted them to play in our album, and then we became a band. Wow. So it was like the reverse process of every band.
And it just worked. They just loved what you were doing, and it just became that, right?
Yeah, and at the moment we didn't feel like forming a band and seeing with who I will play, and then like when you compose something and you produce it, like the way we do it is we just go on I use Ableton Live, and I just do everything of the song, right? I put the drums, the bass, the guitar, the synthesizers, the voices, everything. So when you start playing on a rehearsal, it's like, of course, musicians want to put their own thing.
Yeah, ad lib, and yeah, of course.
And yeah, in a point, I wanted that to be super clear. Like, this is the song.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it's not that you won't negotiate anything, because of course, when you work with other musicians, you want to make music as a group. But like, I didn't want to spend 1 year just discussing if this song should be longer or shorter, or have a part B or a chorus or whatever. It's like, this is the song, let's play it and let's go. So that's why we did it that way, and it worked. We actually that year we played a lot in Buenos Aires, and then we came to tour here to Mexico a few years past that. So yeah, it grew.
And then what did you just think? Oh, we're going to stay in Mexico now. We really like it.
Yeah, we came here in 2017. We really wanted to explore our music, like how would other audiences react to our music, right? Because we lived I'm from Buenos Aires, Lucy's from Santa Fe, and we haven't had the experience before of playing abroad. So it was like a big question. Okay, what if we just go away from here and we try somewhere else? And we chose Mexico. Many people that listen to our music suggested, like, I think that Mexico could be a great like music market for you. And since we compose in Spanish and everything, it just made sense. It's like the bigger market here in Latin America, at least. So we just came to tour, and it was amazing. We spent like 1.5 months here in Mexico City, and we played like all over close to there, right? Puebla and Toluca, and like all the places that are around Mexico City, and many of the venues of Mexico City too, with local bands and festivals and everything. And we loved it. It was like, wow, such an amazing experience to travel with your own music, right?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. Yeah. And did you go back to Argentina afterwards? When did you find it? Why when did you think, oh, we're going to go and live in Mexico?
We sort of knew that when we left.
Really?
We came here in 2017 for almost 2 months. We played in many, many places. And then it was like, we already felt when we came back that we were sort of done living in Argentina. We really wanted to something else, like let's continue with this experience and see where it takes us, right? We had a good experience playing music here, and we could actually try on another country and with another audience and just making stay, because one thing is just being on tour and going back, and one thing is actually try to build your own audience here, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So 1 year later, we were here already.
Wow. Okay.
Just to
So what are you kind of because obviously I know you as opera, jazz, classical artist, but also we've I know that you do kind of alternative. What is it like? Alternative pop? How would you describe the ARCHI stuff? It's alternative rock, pop, folky, indie.
I would say it's in a sense it's like electronic art rock.
Oh.
Yeah. Why? Because we actually no, we actually all the things that you've seen me do more like as a soloist, we merged it into the ARCHI experience. Although that is not original music, like opera music is of course composed by someone else. I've always loved the idea of merging opera music with other projects. In whatever project I intervene, I always did it.
Yeah.
Just because I think it's amazing and people enjoy it so much. And I can. And I love it. So why shouldn't I? Yeah. It's amazing music. Like opera, I feel that is so... Everywhere in the world, people think of opera music as something that just is enjoyable by a few, right? I mean, because the sun is setting there. So it's just enjoyed by certain type of people, or that you have to be rich to go to the theater and play and pay your I don't know in English, in Argentina it's un palco, right? It's like
your balcony,
your balcony, okay, and your tickets, and the season who is playing, and it's sort of, you have to be of like the high society,
a certain financial status, right? Yeah, it would be like middle to upper class.
Yeah, and that is so ridiculous, because I mean, opera, as it's on its roots, wasn't at first it was for the high society, but then it just became the most popular event, right? So the characters that belong to the opera are not high society characters. At first they were, but then they just took elements from the Commedia dell'arte, right? So the archetypes, the characters that are shown there, are relatable to anyone. So that is why in the end, everybody feels touched by the stories that are told in the opera, and the music is amazing. So I always thought, like, maybe you wouldn't like, or you don't know if you would like to see a whole show of 2 hours, but just like little opera arias,
little tastes, like
to transition through our own songs that are pretty big or so. Like, our band is pretty powerful. So I feel that although it's not opera, it has certain things that go well with opera, and that is what we did. That's why it's sort of art rock, and it's not just because when you say rock, you sort of picture other type of performance maybe, and it also has some electronic elements.
Well.
Yeah, it has synthesizers, it has samples.
I guess it's almost like, the whole of the classical crossover movement is actually quite new, although Pavarotti, back in the day, when he was doing his show Pavarotti and Friends, was absolutely crucified by the media because he was singing with pop stars. But actually, that was the first progression into classical crossover. And now, I know they're probably not classed as a classical crossover group, but even if you look at someone like Evanescence and Amy Lee's a trained classical artist, and her stuff isn't necessarily opera, but it's got a real heavy classical, melodic, symphonic sound to a really great pop rock tracks, right? So even Evanescence, for me, I would put it on the cusp of classical crossover. So, and I think some of, like for me, I've always just sounded like me. So I can sing, I don't know, like I can sing Spice Girls and I can sing Nessun Dorma, and I show off, like I put a little bit more force in Nessun Dorma, to be fair. I don't go, when two become one, I tell you what I want, what I really, really, but I don't do like that. But however, my voice is naturally leading to musical, drama and classical. So I couldn't be a black R&B singer if I wanted to be, because I don't have that flavour in my voice. I could probably do a nice version of it. So for me, classical crossover was amazing, because all my favourite pop tracks, all of a sudden, with my voice, become classical crossover. Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, you definitely have that type of voice.
And you
have like the sound, you have like the volume that you need. And of course, you change the way you say a vowel, right? Like maybe you make it a little bit more heavy because the style requires it. But also, I'm also against that. Like when it's a crossover, then like you're not actually singing the opera in at the theater.
Yeah.
Then you can take all those licenses away and just explore, like, and it can become beautiful, because you don't need to do everything like Pavarotti did it, right? It's like you just have to do your own version of it. Of course, it requires certain ways of singing, because of the legato and like the volume that you require, and the way you pronounce, because we use all these different languages, so the pronunciation of everything has to be correct. But I'm super against being like in Spanish, there's a word that's called impostar. I don't know it in English. It's called impostar la voz. Is when you actually it goes to the root of the word would be imposter, right? It's like you are sounding to make it like super big, and so that the theater can listen to you, and you pass over the orchestra and everything. You have to make such an adjustment in your instrument that it doesn't become your instrument anymore.
So, absolutely.
So I particularly don't like that about classical singing, although I know that to get it done, you sort of have to do this adjustment, right?
I guess, like when I was living back in London, and I was singing in lots of events where there was the woman that was playing, like one of the witches in Wicked, and the guy that was doing the Phantom, and I sang in the show as well, because I was doing classical crossover and I was just being Jaden. And it's quite interesting, because when I'd finished my bit, I went out into the audience area and I sat at the back, and I just closed my eyes, and there was a group of students that were in the West End that had been to this particular theatre school. And these guys were singing, and I closed my eyes, and everyone sounded like this, and they all sounded the same, and you couldn't hear when one finished and one started. And it all just became like 7 boys doing one voice, and I was like, wow, like that. It kind of almost became conveyor belt, whereas the people that were playing the leads had a particular flavour, had a particular essence to their voice that just set them apart. You could tell they'd been trained to buggery, like they were on it, how they'd been trained. But at the same time, they still had a certain essence to their voice. They were allowed to be them within their music. But all the other people, they just all sounded identical. And I found it quite sad, actually, because I thought, my God, I would like to have your power and your talent and your opportunities, and yet you sound like 7 of your best friends. Like
Yeah. I mean, you have to do certain things that the style needs to do to sound like that style of music.
Mm-hmm.
But when you just sound exactly the same as somebody else, then it's just weird. And I've had that struggle when I first studied classical training, and I wanted to become this super and you have your teacher telling you more, and the piano like, come on, the corner there,
the walls are shaking.
Like, okay. And then what sort of saved me was that I studied classical music, but I never stopped singing jazz or any other music that I loved. Mm-hmm. So as I had a jazz band all the time that I studied, I always sounded like me, because when I do jazz, I don't sound like whoever. I just sound like Jime sounds.
Yeah.
Of course, I do the jazzy stuff, but it's my voice.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, yeah, and when it's so weird when the other students wanted to sing the songs I sang like my friends at the conservatory, they were like, "How do you do that?" And it's like, I don't do anything. I just sing like I speak. And they were like, "Yeah, what a little moonlight can do to you." It's like, no. Normal. What a little moonlight can do to you. Normal. Just say it. And it was like, yeah, I'm saying it. What a little no.
I actually had something similar by one of the guys that played Phantom, and I was singing like a classical, but I would put like a little, because I'm a pop boy that sings classical. I'm not a classical boy that sings pop, So,
but as pop, although you need to do certain things,
absolutely, you've got to step it up a little bit. You've got to be intelligent about your music and about what you're doing. You've got to know that I can't sing Spice Girls. I tell you what I want, what I really, really want. You've got to be like, I tell you what I want, what I really, really want. You've got to play around, but it's still me doing it. But this guy, he'd played Phantom for quite a while, he went, "Oh my God, I wish I could do what you do." He said, "Don't get me wrong, like I know people like my voice." He said, "But I haven't got the freedom in my voice that you have, because I'm just so rigid in my learning now."
Yeah. You sort of become like a robot, because it's weird. Like you lose your voice.
But you lose your individuality.
It's so weird. But yeah, it happens. You need to sort of become one, and then when you actually want to go back, you can't. It's like you lost it somewhere.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, luckily, I have always had like the jazz that saved me from that. Or the musicals that I always sang, and I love them, and I think it's my voice singing. Although it's so funny that I sang like the Disney songs and all that since I was so like a little girl, and whenever I start singing that, I sort of switch into my infantile childhood. It becomes like, okay, but I like it, so it's fine.
And I think a whole new world sounds great, mate. Don't you worry. So we're coming to the end of this interview, but what is the future for Jime Soprano musically? What do you see yourself doing in the next few years?
We are imagining that future right now. The thing that I'm working on doing, and it will take a little while, but what I really want to do is what I really want, Jaden, no, to actually do our ARCHI show, in a more like get an actual crew and an actual place where we can perform more in a theatrical way. Why? Because what we do, although it can adapt to different places, it is like a big sound band, and with the opera going on, and like we are working on a script to make it all like sound together. It won't be a play, of course, not like an actually a show with a story, right? But yeah, we're working on defining our universe more, and that involves that our next shows have to be more produced and in a theater, actually, cool. Not just anywhere, right? So yeah, we're working on that to produce our shows and have like a story going on, and I won't tell yet.
Well, that means you have to come back on the Jaden Show when it's all up and running.
I know, but I won't tell you what it's about. But yeah, we wanna upgrade what we're doing, and just become more like a produced show with theater elements involving and lightning. No, I don't want lightning, because lighting.
But maybe lightning would be very atmospheric and dangerous.
I don't want anybody killed. Lighting, like have a crew that can sustain our story. And I would really like it to be an experience, which it is already. When you listen to Archie, it is a musical experience, and we want to complete this more with all the other stuff.
Visual effects and everything.
Yeah, all the visual part needs to be worked. So
I'm quite excited to see that already.
Yeah, me too.
That's fantastic. Well, you need to be keeping in touch, darling. I mean, I know I see you every week anyway, but with the Jaden Show, when things are up and running, you need to be coming back and telling us what's going on. Because all my 13 fans and 2 dogs are going to be very excited about this news.
Of course. We want them there.
Jime Soprano, the most loveliest lady in Puerto Morelos. Thank you so much.
Jaden Cornelius, thank you so much. I love you.
Darling. And you too, honey. And I'll see you soon. And thank you for being part of my show.
Of course. Always.
Hasta
love you.
Pronto, mi guapa. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It's always amazing to chat to that girl. She is super lovely. And if you're ever in Puerto Morelos, in Quintana Roo, in Mexico, then go to Leila's Vegan Pizza and you will see her and her wonderful husband, Lucio, in the evenings there. They have got great food. Well, actually, you see her pretty much all day. But please go and check out Leila in Puerto Morelos and you'll be able to see and know and meet and enjoy the wonderful Jime Soprano. Now, I'm going to leave you with the video that we were talking about because it just lifts my day. It's one of what's called El Más Sensual Spider-Man en Mexico by ARCHI. I'll see you next week on The Jaden Show. Don't forget to follow, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to share, to comment, to like, to tell everybody in your world about this show and get them to do the same. I will leave you with El Más Sensual Spider-Man in Mexico, and I will see you next Sunday. Take care. Bye-bye.
Abran paso que van a entrar los reyes del escombro. Usted pensaba que sabía cuidar, pero solo como un lavo de mazo. Tírame lo que le quede mal, que de seguro yo me lo pongo. Te presento a la alquimista del cobre, que como tomaron lo que les sobre. Radiadores, símbolos viejos, su chatarra y feos sillones, ropa usada y esos tacones llenos de hongos. Conciencia del tiempo, aquí y ahora es el momento. No voy a dejarte pensar. Te aferras a tiempos mejores, pero solo cuenta el presente. Y aunque sé muy bien lo que siente, présteme toda su atención. Soy un comprador generoso, pero mire a lo que me expongo. Se pone tan emocional cuando se trata de soltar. Radiadores, símbolos viejos, su chatarra y feos sillones, ropa usada y sus donaciones, o lo que quiera regalar. Tambores, tambores.
Pizza. Alles cute. Venga. se mueve. A ver. Mira cómo se mueve.
Ay, me encanta, 20 pesos.
Se mueve muy bien.
Tengo 20.
Ah, no,
20 pesos por Spider-Man.
Pero mire lo que te cura.
Bueno, pero...
Pero mire lo que te cura.
No, 20 pesos. 20 pesos. Tengo 20. Tengo 20. ¿Ahora sí o no? Dale.
Chao, amigo. Váyase con la señora. Vámonos. Atrás, amigo.
¿Puedo?
Atrás.
¿Puedo?
Adelante.
Qué bueno.
Es
¿Cómo?
muy buen
¿Así?
cocinero.
¿Así?
Sí, métale. ¿Quiere con chile? Aquí tiene chile.
Cocina muy bien.
¿Quiere con
Cocina
chile?
muy bien. ¿Cuánto para el
¿Le gusta?
amigo? ¿Va a venir amigo? ¿Cuánto para el amigo?
10 pesos.
¿Por qué no? ¿Por qué no? Tómalo ahora.